When it comes to online reviews, there are the usual suspects. The person who yells at you through their keyboard. The guy who gives you 1 star because he got a parking ticket outside your office. Oh, and of course, the lady who wasn't 100% satisfied with the paint color on your walls. The world of online reviews isn't always fair. And chances are, if you're not actively asking customers to review your business, you're probably going to get more bad than good. That's why there's Podium. Podium has helped thousands of businesses use text messaging to collect hundreds of customer reviews on the sites that matter most. The best part is, it's super easy. It takes 30 seconds or less for your customer to leave a review on their phone, which is proven to get you a lot more reviews. To see a free demo and learn how Podium can help your business's online reputation, visit podium.com/podcast or call 1-833-276-3486 today. Mention this ad for additional savings.
Welcome to the Navigating Dental Insurance Podcast, where we don't take from insurance companies. Here are your hosts, Mr. Jordan Comstock and Mr. Ben Duine. This podcast is sponsored by BoomCloud Dental Membership Software, www.boomcloudapps.com, and Veritas Dental Resources, www.veritasdentalresources.com. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to another exciting episode of the Navigating Dental Insurance Podcast. I am your host today, not your co-host, Jordan Comstock. Ben is traveling and speaking around the nation. I think he's in California, actually, where it is nice and warm. Yesterday, or 2 days ago, here in Utah, it was 75 degrees, and I'm looking out my window here, and there's snow on the ground, and it makes me really, 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 really mad because I hate the snow, and I don't know why I live in Utah. So today I have an awesome guest. He's a good friend of mine. We've been to lots of conferences together. His name is Kevin from Divergent Dental. Kevin, what's up, dude?
Hey, how's it going, Jordan? You need to come down here to Texas, man. It's 73 today, and we haven't had snow for like 2 years.
Oh man, yeah. I love Texas. I think in November last year I went to Austin, Texas. I'm a big music guy. I love doing all things music, and Austin, that was an awesome city, and it was
good
warm.
Place.
Yeah. Where are you at in Texas?
The Dallas area.
Dallas. Okay, cool. I actually just spoke with the guys that were at the conference. So Kevin was just at the conference, the Dental Success Summit conference with us that Mark Costas puts on. So we were able to chat down there. But I had Dental Warranty guys, and they're from Dallas, I think.
Yep.
So they were on the show yesterday. And if you were listening to this, the dates are probably not correct. So because we're posting these at different times. But anyways, Kevin, you're at Divergent Dental. Tell me your story. How did you get involved in dentistry?
Sure. Like a lot of other things that get out there, I started Divergent Dental kind of to fill a need that I personally had. So I work with my dad. He's a dentist. He's been a dentist for a long time, and manages office. And I was tracking numbers for him. He's always been a numbers guy. He's had spreadsheets and different things that he's used for years to track his numbers. Well, when I came in, that was handed to me, and I was finding I was spending anywhere from 5 to 15 or more minutes every day just updating reports and spreadsheets, and I'd run one report, fill out one number. I'd have to manually count certain things and fill another box here or there. And I literally, most days, was at least 15 minutes just manually entering things.
Yeah.
And I hated it. I'll just be honest. I knew the numbers were important, so I did it. But sometimes, just waiting for the practice management software that we were using just to run the report. I mean, some things would take 5-10 minutes just sitting there watching something spin and just wait for it to update.
Slow software.
Oh, I hated it. So, anyways, figured out how to streamline that, basically semi-automate it, and then we made our conversion to Open Dental, and that's actually what kind of pushed me over the edge, because with the other software, we only had a limited access to a certain amount of data, whereas with Open Dental, we had full access to the entire database, and I was able to write a program that automated everything that I was doing before. So instead of spending 15, 20 minutes a day of my time, I was spending 0 minutes of my time and still getting the same numbers. So instead of using my bandwidth to gather the numbers, I was then able to analyze the numbers and look at them more in depth, honestly. So basically what we've developed is just a system that first off I realized, hey, this was valuable for us. Maybe others could benefit from it. And sure enough, 4 years later, we've got active growing client base and supporting Open Dental, Dentrix, and EagleSoft, and just helping practices know their numbers better. We're really trying to be something that's not necessarily the overly complex tool. We want to keep it simple and focused for practices to really track some core metrics that really drive production. So that's what we're kind of all about.
Very cool. No, I couldn't agree with you more with in regards to collecting data and just metrics. I like you, have a lot of family in dentistry, and I used to manage a dental lab, which has a lot of unique or similarities to a dental practice. And I remember tracking all the data and how much time it took, and it sucked.
Yeah.
But it's so necessary, and I think a lot of businesses and practices that are really wanting to learn more about their companies and practices and understand how they could, grow and optimize and just be more efficient. Tracking, data, that's data is king, right? In regards to running a business. And that applies to practice owners. Your practice is a business, so
absolutely,
and many of our listeners know that I'm a big guy with numbers, right? I want to track certain numbers in my own business, but in a practice, if I were to own a practice or manage a practice, do you manage the practice or do you own part of it as well?
Manage it. So
okay.
in Texas, you have to have a DSO if you're going to own a practice. And
really? They got all that stuff, huh? So interesting. Yeah. So if I were to manage a practice, I would want to know all sorts of numbers. So could you give us an idea of what type of metrics Divergent Dental, the software, tracks for a practice?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So, like I mentioned before, we're not trying to provide every possible stat we can look at. And so we have different reports that we offer at different times. We have daily reports, monthly reports, weekly reports, and each one of them kind of give you a different angle for what you should be looking at. And kind of what I think about is every day, it's kind of like you're going to put some reading glasses on and just peruse some big picture numbers. Once a week, you're going to get a magnifying glass and dig down a little bit more. And then every month, you want to get your microscope out and really drill down and look at really some high, really specific level detail. So some of the stats we look at every day that practices really find, we look at adjusted or net production, where you are month to date and where you should be in order to hit your goal for the month. Our daily dashboard is goal driven. It's not just showing you the numbers, kind of here's a picture with no context.
Very cool.
It's showing you where you are now in relation to where you should be in order to hit a goal for the month. We do that with production, again, net or adjusted production. I believe that gross production is kind of just a fun number to see and say, okay, that's nice, but what number are you really going to try to collect on? I mean, you guys navigate the PPO world. If you're heavy PPO, you could produce $2 million gross production in a day. Just raise your fees.
Yeah.
But you're not going to collect that. So
no, not at all.
So the adjusted production is what matters most. And then we look at collection as well. What payments are you getting in relation to your production, so you know your collection percentage, and then also new patients. As far as visualizations go every day, those are the only three we look at visually because we want you to stay focused. Those are the three things you should know any time of the month. You should know here's where we are month to date, and we provide that in a visual fashion. But we also look at case acceptance every day.
Awesome.
We want to know what percentage of patients are saying yes to treatment you're adding to their chart, and we're also looking at reappointment rate is another big one we're looking at. And I think that those are some of the core metrics you should pay attention to every day. Those are kind of the big things we look at.
Very cool. No, I think that was a lot of good information there. What, in your opinion, what are some of the and as a managing a practice, right? What are some of the benefits of tracking and knowing your metrics in a practice?
Yeah, I think it's a lot like when you're trying to either get in shape or lose weight. In
Yeah.
any type of athletic event or physical well-being, you're going to track your numbers. If you want to lose weight, you don't just say, "Hey, I want to lose weight." That's not really going to do any good. You need to first know where you are. If you say, "Hey, I want to lose 100 pounds," and you weigh 100 pounds, well, it's a bad goal.
Yeah, I would
You
say.
really need to know. Yeah. So the benefits of knowing your numbers is you need to have an objective measurement of, okay, where have you been in the past before you can know where you need to go in the future. So specifically the ways that that's beneficial, a couple areas that are really eye-openers for some practices would be in terms of reappointment rate, and then also I would say like perio percentage. What percentage of adults are being treated for periodontoses? We look at that in our monthly report. But really, those are two areas with private practices. I can see a lot of upside that can happen. So, like for example, reappointment rate. The higher performing practices are typically seeing somewhere around 85% reappointment rate. Some are higher, some are just slightly lower than that. But that's a really good target to aim for, as opposed to 100%, because you don't want every patient to be reappointed. Some of the patients you just know. Well, we'll just be kind and use they're just not a good fit for your practice.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and so you don't want to pre-appoint them. But then also those who have a habit of breaking. So 85% is a really good target to aim for. So 85%, and if you're like at 75%, when you first start tracking that number, then you realize, okay, I've got room to grow there. Same thing with perio. Perio, a lot of practices in the private world, I'm seeing somewhere in the 10 to 15% when they first start looking at their numbers. Sometimes even as low as, literally zero. I've seen some practices
Really?
they don't any. They either are not treating patients at all, or they're not charting perio codes at all in their practice, and that's. Some of them, that's just their clinical protocol, and I don't understand that personally, but
seems weird.
So the benefits of knowing your numbers is it gives you an objective measurement instead of the subjective feel where, doc, you're seeing the patient, you do the exam, say, all right, hey, Jane up front's going to schedule you for your next appointment. We'll see you in 6 months. I say, sure, doc, see you in 6 months. You assume every single one of your patients is scheduling their next appointment. The reality is it could be as low as 50%.
Yeah.
I know for us when we were tracking it, we thought it was 95%. It was 73% when we first started tracking.
Yeah,
so
big difference.
Yeah, it was a huge difference. And so we just made a couple small changes with how we were doing it, and immediately we saw huge growth in there. So knowing your numbers first, it lets you know what areas you should focus on. Because if you have great numbers there, then maybe you don't need to even worry about that. Maybe fine-tune in some other areas of the practice would be a better place to start.
Yeah, no, I agree. Knowing your numbers is and getting a system like this in place is a huge benefit for the office, because when I managed my dad's lab, and I remember asking all the time, "Hey, Dad, what do we make when a dentist buys a crown from us?" Right?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "I don't know. I think maybe like X amount of dollars." And I'm like, "Did you just say I don't know? Maybe like?" and sure enough, we crunched all the numbers, and he had a lot of clients that were ordering crowns from us that we were going negative $15-$20 every time they ordered a crown. So if they ordered a ton of crowns from us, we were actually losing money. So I think that's a great example of the importance of knowing your numbers, even if they're not tied to like profit margins and just profit like this example. But knowing your numbers is so critical in understanding the health of your business and understanding where where you want to take it, what goals you want to reach. But I was amazed that when I was managing that office the lab that was the case there. So I remember sitting down and manually tracking all the numbers and calculating our profit margins, and then just being really surprised.
Yeah,
and
that's an eye opener for sure.
It's an eye opener, and I think every dental practice needs a metric tracking system like what your software offers, because it is so hard to manually track everything on a daily, on a monthly, on a quarterly basis, right? It's so hard to track all these critical numbers, and data is king, right, in regards to making decisions. So,
Speaking of that, the numbers I actually took a look at. We have a morning huddle report that we provide that gives you a snapshot of the day, just to try to make the most of every opportunity you already have on your books. And I've looked at that, and I think it's about, like, to do this yourself. You could absolutely pull our reports together yourself if you want to do it manually. There's nothing
totally.
secret, say, in the end result,
just
but
an
the
automated
process,
system. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. I mean, like, we'd have to run probably 9, I think was the number, 9 different reports, and then compile it all together. It might even be 12, I think. One of those two numbers, put it all together. And, if you want to do that, more power to you. And for me,
Yeah.
what's most important is know your numbers. Whether you use a tool like ours or anything else out there, or just do it yourself. I mean, I'm happy when practices know their numbers better, because data is power. It's knowledge, and it'll help you make informed decisions for your practice, as opposed to shooting in the dark.
Totally. No, I couldn't agree with you more there, dude. So now that we've kind of talked about some of the benefits, what are some of the problems you've seen? I've kind of shared my story, but I want to know some stories that you've seen out there of practices that don't track anything. What are the problems that you see with those types of practices?
The two biggest areas I see when practices aren't on top of their numbers have to do in collecting. Actually, it's probably just one big issue is collection processes just fall off the map when you're not tracking things. For example, I have a client whose front desk was not really good at asking patients to pay their co-payments.
Oh, no.
And so, so one of the reports we provide shows your AR comparing your insurance outstanding and patient number, and they were just watching that trend. It shows a historical trend that number, the patient balance, was just growing and growing every month. And it turns out they just weren't collecting. They just did not ask the patients.
I have a story on that too for the lab. I'll tell that after.
Okay.
Keep going.
Yeah. So when they didn't know that, they weren't tracking that, that they just didn't have a clue that was going on. Well, when they looked at the numbers, they saw that, they addressed it with the person. Well, the person wasn't willing to change, so they made a change in the practice, and their numbers improved dramatically over the next 3 months when they put better systems and processes and people in place. So
Totally.
That's a big one. But then on the other side of things, I just recently did a little bit of studying on the collection percentages for practices based on what they're averaging to collect per month. So, for example, what I mean by that is practices that collect, not just produce, but collect 200,000 or more. I just ran the numbers a couple weeks ago, and I found that those the clients that I'm looking at, they're actually collecting 101% compared to their production. And so they're ahead of it, and you seem that surprising. I was surprised by that too, but the more I thought about it is they have good systems in place, and they're having patients prepay for their treatment often.
Love it, yeah.
So like that, then of course you're going to collect more than you produce quite often, because you haven't finished the work yet. And so that's one example of where it happens. So then I dropped down and I started looking at 100 to 200, but I found that actually between 50 and 200, the numbers were almost identical. The collection percentage for that range, for again average per month collection, 50,000 to 200,000, they're averaging right about 98.4%, I believe is the number. And so you can see it's still pretty good.
Yeah, it's still pretty healthy.
But to get over 200, you have to have a better system in place. But then the biggest change that I saw was when it's 50,000 or lower. So an average size practice in North America, a lot of practices run right around that size, small solo doc situation. That number dropped below 90% collection percentage.
Wow.
I think it was 87 or 86.5% collection percentage. And what really spoke to me there is if you want to be a high-performing practice, you have to have good systems and procedures in place. And knowing your numbers is one of those things you need to track. So,
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more there. The story that comes to my mind is, when I managed the dental lab, we did not have a system to help collect, our accounts receivable. And my dad would just he would just manually fold out the paper statements and manually mail them out to each dental practice. But there was no automated way. I'm a big fan of automating payments, as you know. And there was no way. I remember we had a client that owed us $25,000, and
my gosh.
It was nuts. And it just kept going and going and going. And my dad's like, "Oh, he'll eventually catch up." I'm like, $25,000, and he's sending steady cases to the lab each month. It was nuts. So having systems in place is critical. It reached to the point where every time a case came in, well, I eventually told my dad, I'm like, look, you got to hold these cases until you can get money, because this guy's like well over 90 days. It's like way past 6 months, what he's due in owing us. So I'm a fan of having a process and a system for collections, and I always like hearing those stories where those practices they get a lot of prepayments, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That's the way to do it. If the practice can be net zero, that would be incredible, but not all the time they can do that, right? That net zero is my favorite way of collecting, right? So.
Yeah, and when looking at AR numbers, so I haven't really built this specific stat into our reports yet, but I've been looking at like days sales outstanding, or your average days to collect, and the ones that are the higher performing ones, their AR numbers, they stay right in check for the most part. There's exceptions where they just continue to grow, and that's just the reality. You're going to have exceptions to every rule, but almost always it's the good systems. The higher performing practices have good systems in place and stay on top of those things.
Yeah,
so.
No, I love that. I love that story. So what, do you have any like case studies that you've done with practices that you utilize your software in regards to like just increasing the numbers in the practice? Does that make sense? Increasing the health of the practice?
Well, one example I like to look at has been with us for a few years, and he basically said early on, he's like, you're one of my favorite tools because within the first 2 days of the month, I have my return on my investment back, because one of the things we provide for one of his softwares, it just simplifies the task of just showing you what your day is going to look like in terms of opportunities to add production to the calendar. And he said, just that tool alone, he more than gets his money back, and he's happy to pay our already low service fee because he gets value out of it.
Totally.
So, yeah.
Very cool. I know this last weekend when we were talking at the conference, you kind of had a story about just working with PPOs. Since this is a podcast about reducing PPOs and understanding, the concept of PPOs and then membership programs. What can you share us some of the stories that you have working with some PPO?
Sure.
Is the practice that you help manage? Are you guys like heavy PPO or a hybrid?
Yes.
Heavy PPO.
Heavy PPO, but we do have a membership program too.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, I think we launched it before you did, but I'm definitely not a marketer like you are. Not a slick online tool for our patients to use. But anyway, so my favorite story in the terms of PPO world, this was actually with a plan that we don't participate in.
So you're out of network?
This one was out of network.
Okay.
It's one of the ones that start with a U, so either one of them are not great to work with. But anyway, we had a particular patient that came in and they had an upper bridge done. I think a 3-unit, maybe a 4-unit bridge that they had done. But they also had right around the same time scaling root planing done. Okay. And so we had 2 different visits, 2 different claims that we sent out. Well, the first claim got denied. They almost always deny the scaling root planing just because that's their first step. They say, "Oh no, they don't have symptoms of periodontal disease." They have 5, 6, 7 millimeter pockets throughout their mouth, multiple places, and yet, they just say it's not. They don't show signs of periodontal disease. So that's the first one we get. We're like, all right, fine, whatever. We'll appeal it and started that process. Well. Like a week or so later, they sent the EOB back for the bridge. And the bridge literally in the EOB said, this patient shows signs of periodontal disease, so we don't believe that this bridge is a long-term candidate for restoration. Exact same patient. And I actually smiled at it. It's like, yes.
You're like, okay, I got it.
And I called the number. I said, hey, listen, guys, you denied this claim here because they had periodontal disease, right? So they looked up and said, yeah, that's right, we denied this. Okay, what about this one that says that they do? I kind of feel like I need to report this to the Texas Insurance Board. What do you guys think? Please hold. So, they ended up paying both of them. So, yeah, I should have reported it. But
it's a fun story to tell of how inefficient third-party payers, PPOs are in our industry. I think that's ridiculous. I hear stories like that all the time. in regards to patients. So my mom, I swear, pretty much everyone in my family is in the dental industry. My mom's an office manager, so growing up, I would hear story after story working with insurance companies, and a lot of the times I remember her like yelling on the phone because she gets so frustrated with working on with dental insurance companies and just their games they play and there's the inefficiencies that they do. So another thing that I'd like to talk about here, a couple days ago, I think I mentioned this over this past weekend at the conference. A few days ago, I was talking to a practice that did like a profit margin analysis on some of their PPOs, and they'd found like with a certain PPO, they found that they were losing like negative 58% profit margin on, I think it was a denture. Do you see any of that, or do you track any of that in your metrics for in Divergent?
Right now we're not looking at the profit margin numbers with the numbers we're tracking, but so the things I do though personally, I do personally track that kind of stuff for my dad's practice. So like I literally, like, one of the examples I've been looking at is we just started doing 3D printing in our office.
Oh, cool. So are you like the Cerac milling machines or actual like printing models out?
Oh, like a Forum 2, like a Forum Labs printer, so 3D models.
Wow, cool.
So, and we've been doing Cerac for coming up on 5 years now, or maybe even longer.
We used to use Cerac at the dental lab. I love that system. It's so
good. Which is interesting because some people they think of labs. Well, so some people they want a lab crown. Like even patients think, I want a lab to make this crown, and I'm like, a lot of the labs are doing the Cerac. Well, regardless.
Oh yeah, my dad's lab has they've got the big MCXL, and then they have the X5, which is like this ginormous beast that Sirona makes. But anyways. We'll get off that topic.
So the 3D printing. So I just did analysis. We started doing our in-office aligners, where we are printing the models and then we're making the actual acrylic trays in office. And I did a cost analysis of that, and we took our Invisalign lab fee down from $1,800 that we were paying to them. And now all hard costs and even soft costs, if I were like pushing every possible thing I could think of, we're looking at right at $400 total, start to finish. So it's $1,400 less for the hard costs. And so we looked at that like, well, we don't want to just sit here and just be more profitable per se just from that. We lowered our fee for ortho, and actually what's happened that we dropped it by
probably helps increase case acceptance, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
and we're far enough into it now that we could see that the results are nearly identical to what we were seeing with the other clear line systems out there. And the thing that we do is we actually don't. Some of the systems you have to actually design the models yourself. We don't do it. We actually have a third-party system. Exceed Ortho is the name of it that we use, and we pay them. I think it's like $250 or something like that. Is so like if you run it to be super inexpensive, you could actually use some other softwares out there and do the movements yourself. But we just decided that for our utilization of our time, that we'd go ahead and pay that cost, which is still a substantial lower number than what we had. And
that's cool. And then you pass the savings on to your patients. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Analyze and make sure you're profitable.
For sure.
It's okay to make a profit out there. There's some dentists that don't think that, but it's okay to make a profit, right?
Well, if you're running a charity, you don't really worry too much about that. But since you run a business, you do need to still be profitable.
Exactly. Yeah. So analyze your profit. This is something that I've done with at least on the dental lab side multiple times, and I have an Excel spreadsheet that we give practices for free to help them analyze their costs, per procedure, so they can understand, if they're with a certain PPO, that they can see their profit margin with that PPO, because it's so critical. And after talking to this practice a few weeks back, we realized that, holy smokes, you need to talk to Ben Tuane and see if you can either renegotiate these fees so you can make a profit, or just drop this insurance provider altogether, because every time they send you a patient, you're eating it,
Yeah.
So I think that's just another story to emphasize the importance of knowing your numbers and using a system like like Divergent Dental to help you at least understand, the business metrics there. So.
And one last thought there, Jordan, on kind of what I think about Divergent as compared to some other tools out there.
Totally.
I mentioned before, we want to make it simple for people to know their numbers. I've looked at our system, so it's all email driven what we do, and I can actually track open rates on my emails for that, and I found that it's nearly 100% open rate. If we send a message to every practice, for about every message we're sending, we're getting at least one open on that message, which is unheard of. I mean, email
it's pretty good. I'm
really low.
I'm pretty good with tracking marketing metrics, and that's pretty unheard of.
Yeah,
so very cool.
And so the fact, just some of the other tools out there that are browser based or portal, and that's the tool that they focus on. You're not going to see the same number of usage for that. And for me, the reason we built the system the way we did is because we want people to see it. We want to make it as easy as possible for you to actually know your numbers and not be so focused on having this really advanced, polished tool that has all the bells and whistles. And there might be a point we add that to our service feature, but again, we just want to keep it simple and keep things easy. And so that's what we're about.
I love that, man. Yeah. So I think this has been an awesome interview. What if a practice out there is listening to this episode and wants to learn more about Divergent Dental? Where can they find all that information for you?
The best place is on our website, divergentdental.com. Okay. On our contact page, we have a form they can fill out if they just want to put a note that they heard us on this podcast. Like on the contact form, just say Boom Cloud. We'd be happy to give a nice little discount.
Awesome. Right on. And do you allow people to reach out to you? Oh, sorry. Do you allow people to reach out to you? Do you allow people to reach out to you through email at all, or?
Yeah, sure. Emails Kevin@divergentdental.com.
Awesome.
That's email. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Nice and easy. So reach out to Kevin. Check out his software and how it's going to help your practice improve and be more profitable. Kevin, man, any last thoughts here? This is an awesome show.
No, Jordan, at some point we should probably get back on and I can do some case studies for actually looking at raw numbers of patients who are part of a membership plan versus not, and we can look at like case acceptance specifically. I'd love to drive down to that, so we can do that another time. I think that'd be great.
I think that definitely is another episode that we can create and educate our listeners about that. So very cool to have you on the show today, Kevin. It's been awesome, man.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Cool. Thanks so much.